We arrived to the London Marathon, and right when we're on the start line, I realize I'm about to be on day 1 of my period. And so for anybody who's watching this podcast today, you know, if you are not somebody with a period, let me tell you what you're not trying to do.
Once again, like we never left. Here for the Gender Amplified podcast with the illustrious, the incomparable, the majestic, the terribly charismatic and very attractive, always fashionable, Madame Gandhi.
My sister. I'm so happy we made this happen in LA.
Yeah.
So good. Sticky podcast. Let's
Sticky.
go.
You know, welcome to the Gender Amplified podcast, but you've been a part of the Gender Amplified family for a long time. But let me intro this show. So, all you folks out there on the interwebs, you know what it is. This is the Gender Amplified podcast. We are back with another installment of Sticky. This is a podcast where we talk about music and faith. Sticky is short for stick-to-itiveness, and that essentially means the ability to not give up, in layman's terms. What keeps people sticking to music? It's probably one of the hardest fields, right? I think it might be more likely to become an NBA player than it is to have a number 1 record. I don't know. I don't know the stats on that, but I would bet it's more difficult, right? So what makes people actually stick to it over the years, all the no's, all the disappointments, all of the ups and downs of being in music, especially as music producers and audio engineers. For y'all that don't know, Gender Amplified is a nonprofit organization that supports the advancement of women and gender expansive music producers all over, but especially in New York City where we're incorporated. And one of the things that's important for me is to use music production, audio engineering as a means of promoting self-esteem, especially among women, especially among girls, especially among gender expansive folks. And one of the core aspects of that is faith. So this podcast is dedicated to conversations of faith, not always specifically around religion, but of course that comes up from time to time. What is it within the context of faith that allows for people to stick to their dreams, to have a sense of gumption and stick-to-itiveness? So in the Gender Amplified family, Madame Gandhi has been, a supporter for so long, from afar originally.
Yes.
And then we got together in 2020 during the pandemic and actually made a connection as friends. But for y'all that don't know, Madame Gandhi is an award-winning music producer, artist, speaker. You've done TED Talks. You broke on the scene as a marathoner. We're going to get into that. So super into fitness and health and wellness, and that informs your music. You also got started as a drummer, instrumentalist for MIA.
Yes.
Where you really started to understand what the tour life is. And then you stepped out after the marathon, after the London Marathon, and became your own artist and created your persona, which is Madame Gandhi, which is all about healing, wellness, ritual, music as opportunity for collective growth, sustainability, all those things. So welcome. So
Thank
good to
you, my
have
sister. I always feel very seen by you and celebrated, and I'm grateful to call you my friend. Thank you.
Yeah. All right. So let's start with the basic question I ask everybody. How did you get into music?
From small, I was always dancing. I always wanted to be where the music was at. From a young age, I remember dancing to Marvin Gaye and to Give Me One Reason to Stay Here.
Yeah.
Tracy Chapman. And we lived in New York City, and we lived next to Times Square. And so just driving around New York City with my family, I'm seeing billboards, I'm hearing music. I'm wanting the school bus ride to last longer so that I can hear the end of the song on Z100, you know? I had an incredible bus driver named Harrison who, in front of the parents as he would pick us up as kindergartners, would play the classical music station. But then as soon as we would drive away, he would turn it back to Hot 97, which was the hip hop station, because he knew that we weren't necessarily allowed to listen to that stuff. But he also knew the value of music as an education for young people.
Right.
And so, you know, it was from young that music made me feel included, alive, happy. And it also taught me that lyrics are an opportunity for empathy to understand somebody else's walk of life, because the New York City that Nas was talking about in his songs in Illmatic that I was listening to as a young person were so different than the New York City that I was experiencing. And so even though I grew up with two very traditional Indian parents, and I know we're going to get into talks around faith and spirituality and my Indian roots, I always felt like my music had to be an extracurricular. And I think over time it just became undeniable that I don't stand for that. And music needs to be the moment I open my eyes till the moment I close my eyes.
Right. And not a pastime.
Not a pastime.
You know, I want to give a shout out to Harrison for holding it down. You know what I mean? Wherever you are,
we love you.
We have you to thank. Shout out to you. Ooh. But also, I want to stick on this conversation of, you know, you feeling like music had to be kind of like a hidden passion for so long, but you held on to it. And I think that is an element of faith. I have a similar story. I played basketball for a very long time, and music was on the back burner. There was something that my folks did not necessarily encourage, but I kept it as a hidden passion tucked away.
Yes.
So speak to that, and like, what are the elements of faith in music that influenced you to do that?
I remember when I was young, I was bullied in school at Chapin in my Upper East Side, New York City education. And the reason was that I had gone to that school as a kid, kindergarten, first, second grade. Then we moved to India for 3 years, where I fell in love with the Spice Girls and the Backstreet Boys and always in the talent shows. Then I came back to New York City and I didn't fit in. I didn't have the right shoes, the cool sneakers. I didn't have the cool backpack I was supposed to have. I didn't really understand and participate in all of that. And the year after that is when I discovered drumming, and I learned how to become a drummer. And I studied DJing. My dad used to take me to Union Square to Scratch DJ Academy. And as
are you serious?
Yeah,
he
used to draw me. Yes. And I'd bring back vinyl from India and mix it with Drop It Like It's Hot, Snoop Dogg, and like create my own Bhangra remixes and record it to my iPod. And, you know, what happened was, because I was being excluded and bullied in school, I had to find self-love and confidence in other places.
Right.
And I think because music was such a gift and it saved me as a young person, my parents almost took me out of that school because the bullying was so intense. I just got my confidence back. And what ended up being this small playground of trying to be friends and accepted by other girls who themselves are trying to figure out who they are in the world, I just pivoted and was so accepted by, you know, people who were DJs and drummers and the Afrobeats community. And I would sneak into shows in New York City and pretend that I was related to the band somehow. And because I was a young female, they'd always listen to me, you know. And I think I understood the lines too, because I knew that I did want to party because I'm a kid. Absolutely. I wanted to party. I wanted to explore that side of myself, but I knew just enough how much to push and still keep it responsible so that I can continue, you know, having my dad take me for drum lessons or DJ lessons. And so I share that because when you ask me what sticks, it was the gift that music gave me.
Right.
Being seen, being accepted, feeling like I belonged, and not only belonged, but was celebrated as a young person in music. And one more thing I'll share is that I think as young women, we're so over-sexualized from a young age. And I think because I was skills-based, I was DJing and drumming from a young age. I was close with my father, and I think he really taught me how to carry myself as a young woman, my mom too, and to not dress in a certain way that brought unwanted or unsafe attention. I think I also learned that music was an opportunity for self-protection, that as long as I was like drumming and DJing and skills-based, I didn't have to go to the show as someone's girlfriend.
Right.
I could go to the show as a respected peer. And that was a big shift.
I'm hearing you say something that I definitely also identify with which is music creates the church for the misfits.
Oof, right? That's me all day, every day. That's beautiful.
It's the neutralizing agent.
Wow.
When I was taking chemistry in high school, stop.
Calcium.
You know I was going.
Calcium.
You know I was going. I was taking chemistry in high school. Water, my chemistry teacher told me that water is a universal solvent, meaning that anything can dissolve in it. It is a universally neutralizing agent.
Well, my album is called Let Me Be Water, and you just elevated the whole meaning of that album. So thank you. Wow.
Well, yeah, I mean, music is the universal solvent. I often say, what can Republicans and Democrats get along about? And it's always Beyonce. or the Beatles, maybe.
Absolutely.
It is the neutralizing agent and is the thing that creates the calm sense of belonging that I
Unity.
think we all are actively searching for. I want to put a pin in this conversation and gear it more towards this time that you spent in India.
Yes.
Hinduism.
Yes.
I have to touch on that because when you chose to find a persona,
Yes.
it was Madame Gandhi,
Yes.
right? And there's so much there that speaks to faith, organized in traditional religion,
Yes.
Eastern senses of healing and wellness. Like, explain how that all works together.
I appreciate that. It's so rich. So growing up in India, between Mumbai and New York City, I knew the significance of sharing a last name like Gandhi. My name is Kiran Gandhi. That's our family last name. And I felt grateful that even though we're not related to Mahatma Gandhi, we're sharing a last name with someone who preached values of nonviolence, celebrating your own traditional roots, maintaining inner peace, and really ancient Indian concepts to fight colonial oppressive rule. And I draw a lot of inspiration from sharing the same last name. And when I was choosing an artist name, I knew that many South Asians don't maintain their Indian real name in their artist name because people can't pronounce it, or in my case, they're spelling it wrong all day long, thinking with great confidence they're spelling it right. I don't think you spelled it wrong.
I've definitely done it. And you've definitely corrected me.
I think I'm on autopilot now because, it happens very often. It's very common, normal. But I knew the value of, like Gandhi, owning our roots, and owning a real Indian artist name. And so that's why I kept Madame Gandhi. I like Madame celebrating alpha feminine styles of leadership and soft power, leading from heart space, almost like a wise maternal energy. Our Indian grandparents, my own mother, I grew up with a house of madams for sure. So I liked the idea of continuing that. And then when I think about spirituality and faith, I feel lucky because my mother is half Irish, half Indian. My Indian grandfather was in the Indian Navy as a Hindu and sailed to Ireland and met my grandmother. Oh, and
my God.
Yeah. And we just celebrated her 85th in Dublin. I have an Irish passport, which is why I'm able to live in London. And so she said, I will marry you, but I want to maintain my Catholic faith. That's very important to me. And she also is the only one in the family who doesn't drink alcohol. And so inspired by her 5 years ago, I also let go of alcohol and followed in her footsteps as well. That helped a lot. So when you ask me about faith, I feel lucky because we grew up with, on my mom's side, Hinduism and Catholicism, going to church, celebrating Christmas, Easter, but also celebrating Diwali and Holi and all these wonderful Indian holidays. And then on my father's side, he's Sikh. He's in the north of India, in the Punjab region. And so we're, going to the Gurudwara and singing kirtan and learning about, again, like a very peaceful Indian religion called Sikhism. So because we were not one specific religion and we were three, I was able to see as a young person the threads of spirituality and the value of bringing people together in community, of not feeling lonely, of believing in a higher power than you who loves you and wants the best for you. Also the idea of like, ultimately we can be out here posting and saying whatever, but life is between us and God. Like, source knows the truth. So you can lie to whomever you want, but ultimately when it's all said and done, it was all between you and God anyway. And I always find that very freeing because it's like, then it's exhausting to be out here posting on social media how so many people are and creating all these fake things that are not real. It's just so important to be sincere. What's on the inside is on the outside. It creates a sense of inner peace as well. So that's one of the many ways that spirituality has informed my life and my music. And I'm grateful that you're weaving faith into this conversation.
Oh my gosh. Whew. That was just, I'm just awestruck by you all the time. And I'm a fan as much as a friend. And everything you said, it all just resonates and it's so good. I mean, the relationship between your background, your upbringing, 3 spiritual disciplines.
Yes.
Because I think that's another thing to think about is the discipline of organized religion and just having a background that is faith-based and how that informs your methodology as you navigate music, right? Which requires so much discipline and consistency. And also what you said about drinking.
Yes.
The relationship there, your health and well-being is like a total 360 view of health, happiness, wellness.
Also, when things are between us and source, it's no longer, then the volume on the ego can get turned down. And I think living in a place like LA, every day we're invited to turn the volume of the ego up.
Right.
And when I think about doing things from a service perspective, in service of source, in service of the planet, of other women, that's better for me. Because when I look at Instagram, immediately I always feel less than and not good enough and not this enough. And it's not true. And that's an ego up and down, up and down. You were mentioning earlier just the emotional roller coasters of the music industry.
Yeah.
And I think for me, the galvanizing factor, the thing that neutralizes that is connection to source. Because then every day you're just in service, like, oh God, please accept me. Here I am in service and doing my best and going to make the most beautiful music I can and be on the stage and doing my gifts humbly and with gratitude. And then we're freed from all of that. It's just pure bliss. It's joy. It's delivering. It's channeling. And you can go to sleep with a little bit of detachment, in fact.
I love that. And so what I'm hearing you say in a lot of ways is faith for you has multiple components, right?
Yes.
There's honoring lineage and heritage and how your predecessors, your ancestors navigated that and wanting to have the through line in this contemporary context that you find yourself in.
I'm smiling because I want to make a gospel album with you now. I'm like, are we about to make like an Indian, go to India and go to Memphis?
I mean,
that's the album we need to be making.
You ain't said nothing but a word. We can make that happen. But I'm hearing you talk about heritage, and I'll talk about my gospel roots and upbringing in a second, because it's very much so aligned with your own upbringing background. I'm also hearing you talk about faith as the opportunity to give using music as a medium for the giving of something greater than you to society, to the people in the world, but also to people of lived experience that is like yours. Women, brown people, queer people, wanting to have some sort of, wanting to be a spokesperson, for the lack of a better word, or emissary for those folks, and how faith is related to that. And also just sticking to music as a sense of, or an anchoring. This is my safe space. My drums, my DJ equipment.
Definitely.
Behind the microphone, being on stage. This is where I feel the most connection, because I love the language that you use when you say connection to source. Because how do we do that? And on some levels, I think it goes back to the most rudimentary, most primitive acts. And dancing, singing, playing instruments, singing, giving birth, right?
Oof, wow.
Like the most primitive acts tend to be an opportunity for us to realign. Especially, it really speaks to me when you talk about social media, because social media is the most real and most fake thing at the same time. I don't understand.
I know what you mean. That's
how, but it is 100% digital, which is facsimile. It is a snapshot, a digital snapshot of something that is real, and it is reproduced from the analog in a digital form. So that's a facsimile. And then you have this real part of social media, which is the connectivity. There's a real tangible thing happening between people when they're on social media, even though they're interfacing with essentially visuals and audio that is completely reproduced.
That's a good point. That's true.
So it's real and it's fake, and it's it's so the anchoring, like trying to connect with source, like how do we do that? I want to ask you something. Can you talk me through your music, your mission which you partially did just now, and how gender amplified applies the nonprofit, but also the concept.
Yes. So I always have thought about my music as a message, as a vehicle for a message about social change. And the reason for that is that that's how I experienced music as a young person. The Spice Girls to me were deeply activist because it was the first time in my life that I had seen girl power as something that is cool and aspirational.
Yeah.
It was so important to me as a young person. I was in wonder. I was like, oh, great. It's cool to be a girl now. Well, thank God. It was a big deal.
It was.
And
I was there.
Yeah, you were there. And so because I knew that from a young age, that music is so powerful, I knew that for me, if I were to make music, I'd best be saying something with my mind, my heart, my intelligence, my passion for positivity. And so that's how I think about my music project. It's the vocals and the lyrics, the drums, which is what I've learned how to do from a young age. And then I love the potential of electronic music production, which is why I was such a fan of your work for so many years as a producer. And your beats are all over my live show. So that's the big blessing as well. The potential for electronics and producing in Ableton and sound design for creating sounds that are delicious and enjoyable to listen to that the world's never heard before. Like it's just infinite potential. And I learned that working on tour drumming for MIA, the sound design of her project is next level. Thievery Corporation, these were some of the older electronic bands that I was drumming live for while the electronics were doing the job. And to this day, that's how my live show is. I have a drummer. I also play percussion and sing. We have all of the nice stemmed out Ableton files on a Push 3, which by the way has no laptop, so it looks sexy like a magic trick on the stage. And then we have a sax player who's like playing loud, powerful music, which is inspired by Fela Kuti's work. But what I wanted to share with you specifically, and I'm going to get to how Gender Amplified plays a big role in my inspiration as well, is that in India you have kirtan. So they're singing a mantra and then the group says it back. So you say, Rate, Rate, Govinda, Govinda, Rate, everyone, Rate, Rate, Go. So everyone together is getting hype on these godly chants back and forth. Just now I've been on tour with Femi Kuti. He's doing the same thing. Fela was doing the same thing. Say, yeah, 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 yeah. Say, yeah,
Call
yeah,
and response.
yeah. Call and response.
Yeah.
These are age old, as you're saying. And I watch the room transform because the musician is leading people back to their own heart space, back to their own humanity. And everyone's like, oh yeah, I also have a voice. I also want to be part of this communal moment. And so that's where the transformation happens. And that's why we as musicians are so responsible. So that's one context. And then the other context of spirituality is like when I spend time with you in Memphis, I used to date somebody 15 years ago who was living in Mississippi. So every weekend I'm like going long distance down to Jackson and attending the Southern Baptist church ceremonies on Sunday is so transformative. It's such a vibe. It's happy, positive energy. It's like, are you with me? All right, very good. That's how I do my shows. Pastors are a deep inspiration to me.
Yeah.
And so I always think of myself in like a pastor, like a professor, like a motivational speaker. These all play a role into the work. And all of these examples are spiritual contexts. Yeah. Whether we're in the church or we're in the Gurudwara, it's all similar. So I really wanted to share that. And then I'll just close my answer to your question, which is that in March of this year, 2025, you gave me the gift of a lifetime, which is assembling 10 world-class producers to bring a vision of music to life. And to this day, I'm just so blown away by the caliber of people who you are working with at Gender Amplified. And I think that was a big, if I'm not mistaken, very important to you, because unfortunately as women and as gender expansive people, the music industry is constantly underestimating us. And it's deeply irritating because everyone is cutting their teeth so well in the studio every day. And the caliber of producers, no matter what their gender is just next level in 2025. And so when you put together a group of A+ songwriters, producers, musicians, and we're out here creating this incredible music in 2.5 days, I was just so humbled by what was possible. And I think through Gender Amplified and your mission, you're destigmatizing what it means to be a producer. And you're, in fact, you're removing gender from the lens that they see us and experience us.
Yeah.
And in fact, in an hour, I have a call with your incredible producers, and I'm really excited because they up-level me. And I'm very humbled and grateful for that.
Amazing. Well, We're glad to have you. And from the beginning, I felt that there were producers like you looking for other producers and artists like you who were looking for producers.
Definitely.
And part of the goal of Gender Amplified is to be the conduit of connecting like-minded artists together, because there's just so much talent, irrespective of gender and any other set of identifiers. Yes. There's just so much talent out there that's undiscovered.
Correct.
So part of Gender Amplified's mission is to find great producers that just so happen to be women in gender expanse.
Brilliant. And that's clear.
Right.
That's clear.
No, they're just excellent at what they do, and they just so happen to be of a certain lived experience and a certain social awareness that makes them also want to find like-minded folks. And the truth of the matter is, all of production culture is amplifying gender. I mean, when you look at the Rolling Stones, you don't see gender amplified, but that's what it is. Right? It's dudes that got together, that are friends and like being around each other and make stuff because they're of similar experience.
Yeah.
When you look at the Beatles, the same exact thing. There's actually, I came across recently Paul McCartney being like, you know, when John started bringing Yoko to the studio, it was messing the vibe up. You know, like we were broskies. We were broskies. Like we were thinking of ourselves as a cohort of like-minded creatives. And when the energy shift, because, you know, a girlfriend or a fiance was in, it just kind of created a bit of a schism between all of us, and it kind of messed up the vibe. And I think there's a way to think about that as a positive thing. And it's a way to think about that as not a less of a positive thing. I think, but I think the reality is that people of similar lived experience like to create together.
Yes.
And our world is so tragically segregated.
This is so smart. Is that why I love working with women? That makes so much sense what you're saying.
Bro,
it's the safety of the lived experience.
It ain't science.
Right.
It's like, you know, the ways in which so many women just throw around in the studio when I'm with them safely, all of the things that they're going through, whether it's
huge.
You know, dealing with boyfriends or girlfriends or dealing with the hormonal things.
Yes,
that, you know,
that's
some
huge.
of us are very physiological experiences, anatomical experiences.
That's right.
There's no need to hide any of that stuff when you're looking someone dead in the eye that knows exactly what you're talking about.
Wow.
And that ends up influencing the creative.
And what's interesting is that you're so smart what you're saying, because I'm with women a lot and I'm comfortable saying my truth, then what happens is, because I've practiced that safety, then when I'm in a mixed gender environment, or if I'm even only the female, I still maintain my bravery to speak authentically. Oh, I'm sorry, I'm a little bit under-resourced because I'm about to bleed. Like, I'm more brave to say it and be more authentic with that because I've practiced it.
You've practiced it, but also I would like to commend you for just your consciousness around that in general. So this is a good segue to talk about the London Marathon.
True.
Why don't you break that down for the folks at home that don't know, and why were you so adamant about the free bleeding movement and why you felt that it was a conversation to have in an international fashion?
Yeah, man, absolutely. I was in my second year of Harvard Business School in Boston, and I had an amazing first year where I was drumming all over the world for MIA, and I felt very cool. And it worked for me to go to business school because I had just worked at Interscope Records. I was thinking I'd go back to Spotify afterwards, and that was my path. The second year of business school, I actually felt quite depressed. I didn't have this same vigor because of the MIA tour, and I felt something was missing. And I also had gained a bunch of weight from the MIA tour as well. And I was like,
tour is gonna put those pounds on.
I was like, this is something different. And I remember seeing all the runners in Boston getting up at 6 a.m. I mean, I know that's normal for you, Ebonie. Very few music producers I know are out here hitting the gym at 6 a.m, but I was certainly not on that tip just yet. And I was very inspired by winter time. Everyone's out here running and getting after it. And I was like, that's never going to be me. And I think because I knew that's never going to be me, I was like, then it's going to have to be you. And so I remember I was like, I want to be like these runners. It's so honest and raw. And like 3 miles is an honest accomplishment. So I just started running, and I just wanted to share that precursor because I think as musicians, we're in studios and we're not always moving our bodies. And I think just for me, it's, to this day, it requires proactive effort to be moving my body and exercising. So I started running, and over the course of months, I was running 10 miles, 15 miles. I was really changing my own life. I was building stamina. Yeah. I was so motivated. Boston is a beautiful place to run. It also built up my confidence, just like the time I told you when I was bullied at school, but I was drumming. It reminded me of that time because I didn't really fit in at Harvard Business School. Surprise, surprise. But I was smart. So I was doing well in the classroom, but from a peer-to-peer standpoint, they weren't my closest of friends. So by the time I was getting to 20 miles, a friend of mine was like, you should run the marathon. Like, let's go run London. We can run with breast cancer care. We can raise money. It'll be beautiful. So I had just graduated business school in the spring of 2015. We arrived to the London Marathon. And right when we're on the start line, I realize I'm about to be on day 1 of my period. And so for anybody who's watching this podcast today, if you are not somebody with a period, let me tell you what you're not trying to do. It's run 26 miles, on the first day of your cycle. And so like many of us who have been caught unprepared on our periods, I was just trying to analyze my options. What is it that I can use? I didn't really have a pad. That's not good for running anyway. Maybe a tampon could have been good if I could have found one, but I didn't feel that would be comfortable for running 26 miles anyway. And I was like, I'd rather just bleed freely and run and see what happens. And honestly, I knew that was radical and bold, and I didn't really know what would happen. I was just like, that feels more comfortable for me. And I think even us as women and people who bleed, choosing our own comfort, unfortunately, is still radical. There's so many things that we're constantly doing to make sure other people are comfortable at our own expense, which is part of the oppression that we're all trying to fight. And so I started running. I was bleeding. Amazingly, my outfit was pink because I wanted it to match breast cancer care, which was a blessing because that's what made the story go viral. Had I run in my original outfit, which was black tights, then the story wouldn't have gone viral because you wouldn't have been able to see that I was bleeding.
So we wouldn't be here today.
We wouldn't be here today. There would be no Madame Gandhi without those pink tights. So I'm bleeding, I'm running, I'm feeling amazing in my body. I'm so proud of myself. I'm like, women are amazing. People who bleed are awesome. This is punk rock, radical feminism at its finest. And I knew, I was like, you can try to shame me, but like go run 26 miles bleeding from anywhere and then we can have a conversation.
Well, go run 26 miles,
period. Pun intended. And so, oh my gosh. So therefore I was like, this is incredible and badass and empowered. And then I also was quite aware that it's a position of privilege to even run the way that I chose to run, that millions of people who bleed all around the world are not in the same position of privilege to choose how they want to be in their own bodies, to be authentic about the fact that they're bleeding. And so when I crossed the finish line, it no longer just felt like a marathon. It felt like a political statement. I knew it was radical.
Yeah.
And I had a little bit of like mini fame because I was going to Harvard and drumming for MIA. So like that, I had like mini fame around that story. But when I shared with some friends who were journalists about my experience, there was an article that was written and then Australia picked it up and then London picked it up and then the BBC and then the New York Times. And before we knew it was like trending on, on the news, Facebook, which was what we were all using at that time. It was trending for like 6 days in a row in terms of people just resharing and engaging in groups about the experience. And really for me, it was about using this kind of performance art to destigmatize what it is that all of us are doing once a month privately, and to really love what it is that the female body does. So that was a very important moment in my career and allowed me to step into my role as a leader through feminism and through this health activism.
Oh, wow. Okay. The only challenging thing about doing this podcast with you is putting a pin in everything I want to comment on and then having to like remember.
Sorry.
So let me see here. I want to firstly comment on this idea of mini fame, which I think should have a subscription plan. I think mini fame should be something that TikTok
I
rolls
feel
out
mini famous for a lot of things.
as a subscription.
I feel mini famous for wearing yellow every day. Like I feel mini famous. Like my friends always send me these like fucking memes of like 90-year-old women who only wear orange or who only wear green, and they're like, you know, this is gonna be you, right?
Yeah. I mean, because I know you as a budding sunflower.
Thank you. I mean, my name Kieran means ray of light. I'm happy to be your sunflower.
It's very Madonna.
I love you, fam.
I love that. And the other thing I want to comment on is this conversation of like athleticism and music and politics. Like what I love about your London marathon experience and mini fame and resulting mini fame is that all these things converge. There's a confluence of all of what you are that you're able to bring to the table. You're an athlete, you're an academic and a scholar. You are a musician, you are a political activist and a revolutionary in your own way. You are many famous. You know, all these things converge in this powerful way, and music is at the center of all of it, and faith is at the center of all of it, and you're able to now parlay all of that into what you've been able to build from it. And, you know, for me, the power in it all is that it all came from a very primitive, essential, bodily function.
Wow.
Right, and it goes back to what you were talking about earlier about connection to source.
Yes, which is essential and primitive.
Connection to source moment.
Absolutely.
Right, which is finding an opportunity to, through something very natural, align with spirit.
Yes.
And I think that was what produced all of the subsequent benefit for you, is saying yes.
Oof.
In a moment where you were completely unprepared, didn't know what to do, but you knew you had a responsibility to run because you trained. You have a responsibility to bleed because you're born in this body.
That's it.
You had a responsibility to show up. So you said yes to all of those things. Saying yes to my body, I'm showing yes. Saying yes to the experience. I'm going to be present in this moment. And from that, boom, like the spontaneous combustion of that moment of faith.
Wow.
Opens the door to so much more. And we're here today. I mean,
this is the name of the TED Talk. It's called Atomic Living, which is exactly, so the fact that you're just saying it in your own words, which is the spontaneous combustion of faith. This was the TED Talk that I gave, Atomic Living. Boom.
Boom. You know, because listen, I've run a marathon. I would have never.
LA?
No, I ran Philadelphia in 2008.
Wow.
And I would never.
Were you at Columbia? No, you just graduated.
I had just graduated.
Wow.
But I literally would have just had to wait and be late and mess my time up. Because that bravery, I just would have never thought. I would have never thought that I could have. I think that's the thing. It's not that I wouldn't have done it because I didn't know it was an option. Until someone like you showed, this is an option. Like, because you spoke about it earlier, like we've been so conditioned to believe that our bleeding is an inconvenience.
And also that's part of the capitalism, because then they'll always have something to sell us. That's part of the problem as well. And then also that 24/7, we're supposed to be permanently available for like the sexual pleasure and viewing of men. That's also part of the problem.
Somebody go and Google, let me stop.
What are we going to Google, Ebonie?
No, let me stop. Hallelujah, praise God. Let me talk in the few minutes that we have left. I want to get back to our album that we're clearly going to make, which is our Hindu gospel record that was conceptualized here on this podcast. I'm going to pick it up and run with it. My upbringing, as you know, grew up in the church with a lot of black people. We call that the black church. And that has shaped so much of how I understand everything. I often refer to Gender Amplified as a ministry. It has all the makings of a church in a way. It's a nonprofit.
Yes.
We have a constituency.
Yes.
We have a bit of a clergy, our leadership,
Yes.
and our objectives are really spiritual objectives, which is,
right.
to use music production to build self-esteem and to bring a sense of self-awareness, to bring community,
Wow.
and to help people make their way back to a sense of themselves as musical beings. And I think
That's the gift that you gave
we're
me.
all musical beings.
Yeah.
Whether you can sing or play an instrument, we're all inherently just a heartbeat, keeping meter. We are musical by nature, right? So ultimately, that's the mission, even if it's not written anywhere. Like music production and music making as a methodology towards that larger desire to connect people back to themselves and thus back to source.
Yes.
So growing up in church was how I was introduced to music. And my great-grandmother was responsible for that. She was one of 3 moms that I had. My mother, my grandmother, and my great-grandmother grew up in a house full of three strong women growing up in Memphis. And my great-grandmother was the one who introduced me to the Baptist church and laid the foundation for not only a sense of God and Christ, but a sense of musicality. All of my musical instincts are from her and from gospel music. And every morning I study gospel music.
But that makes sense because whenever we work on songs, I'm like, yes, give me that. And you're like, letting go now. I'm letting go now. There's a way that you score these musical ideas that I have that make them have the emotional potency that I'm wanting the audience to feel. Like whenever I get together with you in the studio and you play those emotional, godly chords, that shows your background and it brings something out in me where I'm like, oof, I felt that.
Yeah, it's because honestly, I will say this, and I think it's a really good ending point. The Black experience with Christianity is a very unique one for a number of reasons. For a number of reasons, and we can't get into it so deeply. But what particularly African Americans, I will say, have been able to do with hymns and the augmentation of hymns through a sense of otherworldly compositional instincts. I say that here in the secular kind of fashion, but in the church we say the anointing and the Holy Spirit.
Yes.
Right, but for the sake of the podcast, I would say otherworldly compositional instincts is really majestic, and it's a lot of times hard to transcribe because it's so emotive and improvisational, and it is the result of connection to source. We, as players, as musicians in the church, don't belong to ourselves when we're playing, right? We are conduits. We are translating through our sensitivity, transducing essentially spiritual energy into acoustical information that other people can hear when we're improvising and in church, and just kind of allowing the Holy Spirit to move according to its plan. But in the commercial and cultural context, so much of music is a sanitized version of that, right? So much of music is, I would say, is a refined. I mean, think about the refining of wheat or like the refining of sugar. It is a processed version of this raw material that comes from Black churches.
Yes, correct. And pain and deep emotion.
Deep emotional pain and deep catharsis by way of deep trauma.
Yes.
Right.
Which then results in ecstatic joy as well. It's like in both opposites.
Right, so you're with me. It's the juxtaposition.
It is.
And the salty and the sweet.
That's right.
Coming together. And so what you hear on the radio, whether it's whether it's K-pop, whether it's Bruno Mars, whether it's country, R&B, soul music, Justin Bieber.
My favorite.
Of course.
That's the album we're making.
It's all there. Like the gospel is there. It's what has been extracted is the good news.
Oof.
Right? The good news is what's missing. But all of the ornamentation of it, the sonic choices, the timbre in terms of the instrumentation, the compositional complexities are all existing. And when you talk about the vocalizing, the melisma, when you listen to your modern vocalists, right, they're all doing some version of what Whitney Houston was doing, which came from New Hope Baptist Church in New Jersey. Right. So there's vocals before and after Whitney Houston, and what she was doing was a pop version of a gospel thing. And basically every vocalist since then has been doing their own modification of that. So you can't get away from the gospel. And before there was Whitney, there was, Aretha, and there was Cissy Houston, and there was Shaka Khan, all women that at whose feet she was studying learning. And those were all women from the church. So it's like you can't escape, you can't extrapolate. And so me wanting to do this podcast is twofold, right? We're talking generally speaking about stick-to-itiveness.
Yes.
But then we're speaking in going through the weeds of asking people, well, why?
Yeah.
Well, why? How have you stuck to this?
Yeah.
What elements of your faith? We get to these more nuanced and more complex conversations about spirit and religion. And to me, religion really does act as some sort of vehicle for accessing spirit. And we all have different religious vehicles. Mine is a Christian vehicle. Yours is a Christian and a Hindu vehicle to access this larger thing that we can't quite ever explain, but we can certainly feel, and we can certainly transduce the energy in our various ways through us and out to the rest of the world. So sticky for me is just determination. I've stuck with music through determination. I've stuck with Gender Amplified through determination, but the training ground for how determination has been translated into discipline for me comes through my faith.
Yes.
My church, all those hymns that I've played or learned.
Showing up each week, showing up and having a community and people noticing when you don't show up, and there's accountability.
It's like, and a responsibility to my gift.
Yes.
Because I think the biggest thing too is when you have a gift for something, right? Like to misuse it or to leave it undeveloped is its own kind of sin.
Agreed. Fully agreed.
I want to give you the last word, cousin. You know what I'm saying? I don't have no question because you don't need a prompt.
Last word is we don't want to participate in cultures that worship money. Let's remember the cultures that we come to that worship nature and source and divinity and community and higher service, because every day we can be distracted with the refined sugars, and they taste good and they're addictive. And unless we have really intentional practices like morning meditation, going for a run, distance, getting up early, devotion, it's very easy to get caught up in the refined sugar. So may we remember to get back to our roots of, being in service of something higher than ourselves. Yes, that's the final word.
It's the final words. You heard it from Madame Gandhi, a friend of Gender Amplified and a friend to the Gender Amplified podcast. It's been an honor and truly a pleasure to know you and to be your friend and to see you grow through the years in every area that you've grown.
I really feel that.
Yeah.
Thank you for saying that. Yeah. I received that because you know me through so many phases, and I'm very grateful to you saying that.
The growth is undeniably there, and it's been a pleasure to watch and observe up close and from afar. Gender Amplified is a nonprofit organization. We got a podcast called Sticky. You know where you can find us, genderamplified.org. If you are looking for producers, music producers, or if you are a producer and you want to get involved with our camps or want to learn more about our organization and what we're doing, why we do it, Once again, check us out at genderamplified.org. Until next time, y'all be good out there.
Coming in here, the energy was already just open.
Even when we had the intro session, I was like, oh, it's gonna be a fun day because you're around like-minded individuals who all want to create something good, something groovy.
I'm glad you're at the Control Room series and apply to our applications.
We started just like listening to music that everyone kind of put out or has worked on so that you kind of get a vibe of like who you're working with and understanding, okay, do we want to start something from scratch? Someone have a beat or a project that we kind of want to build on.
I think y'all voices would really complement each other.
Yeah. You always want to have a producer in the room, a songwriter, a top liner, someone who does beat making. We also want to encourage other people to test out new roles that they haven't necessarily been given the opportunity to play really in a studio.
I felt like I was in Willy Wonka's factory this weekend, like being able to touch vintage gear that still works, that still sounds crazy.
The process becomes a lot easier when you're pooling resources, when we have someone like Mo who we can come reach out to for the technical points. And then we have Jewel in there who's, teaching us about the voice compression and different plugins that we can use.
Everything here is so structured. Everything here is like, we feel safe.
I don't know, being here has been a breath of fresh air.